What did he say? I mean, I'm just going to break it down. This is as basic as this gets. That's Starmer and Trump, are going to try, there's an operative term, to get back as much as we can. You know what he just said, Danny? They're not getting any land back. End of story. It's done. It's finished. The Russians have put forward a steadfast, unchangeable, unmovable position that every piece of territory, every inch, or I guess the Russians use centimeters of territory that is Russian constitutionally will be Russian in perpetuity. And they're not going to budge on that, and Trump's not going to budge either. He has Starmer there. Look, Macron was there the day before. Trump said things as well. None of that's going to happen. This is a negotiation that's being run by other people. Right now, Donald Trump is playing, head of state, and he's holding the hands of two European allies who have just folded like a house of cards. Again, remember, a week ago, Macron and Starmer were going to send 30,000 troops in, come hell or high water. The hell with America. We're going forward. Trump humiliated the guy. You think you can beat him yourself? He asked Starmer, and everybody laughed because everybody knows that the British Army, some 75,000 strong, only 26,000 of whom can actually deploy to combat position, can do nothing, zero, squat. And that's what Starmer got, nothing, zero, squat. The person that matters is Steve Wickoff, and he's come out and he has said that the document that's guiding the Trump position isn't the Kellogg document. It's the April 2022 peace treaty that almost was. He said that was almost a done deal, and that's what they're relying on. So if people want to know what's going on, it's that document updated with what Vladimir Putin said is present day reality. Is Trump going to make an opening gambit saying, hey, let's get some terrible. Let me ask you this too, Danny. Is there a ceasefire right now?
No, there is no ceasefire. There is
not going to be a ceasefire either. Going on. There won't be a ceasefire until this is done. And Ukraine has, two options. Lose another million people as they futilely try to hold on to territory that legally is Russian, or accept the fact that they've lost and concede that. That's it. There's nothing else going on here. Trump didn't say anything. I just parsed it out for you. He didn't say anything. And people are blowing that up, saying he's surrendering, he's caved in, the British this, he's betraying. He hasn't done anything. The Russians and the Americans have agreed that the first thing they're going to do is normalize diplomatic relations. The second thing they're going to do is develop economic relations. And the third and final thing they do once they have this foundation of trust is bring it into this conflict. And I think this is, basically Trump telling the Russians, hey, get to work. Finish this thing. Do what you need to do to make the negotiation that much easier. Because frankly speaking, it's going to be a tough negotiation for Trump to come in, for his people to come to a table when it's time to negotiate. And the Ukrainians are still holding on to Zaporizhia city and the right bank of Kherson. Because at that point in time, the Ukrainians are going, well, we didn't agree with the referendum. The Russian Constitution doesn't trump the Ukrainian Constitution. We still occupy this land. Why are we giving it up? And that's a tough that's a tough hoe to row. But I think what we're looking at right now, though, is desperation on the part of the Ukrainians. You see Zelensky now, Starmer, Macron coming over here trying to get Trump to move forward on this peace plan. Trump's not going anywhere on this peace plan. Not going anywhere on it. They're not even talking about it right now because he's going to let again, Putin said it's the 2022 Istanbul communique updated to present reality. And I think what Trump is saying is let's get the present reality sort of updated when we sit down. But that's it. I don't know why people are. I've just looked at the panic and I'll just bring up another thing. Vietnam. Paris peace talks began in 1968. They ended in January of 1973. 5 years. Donald Trump has done more in 1 month than anybody has ever done in any peace negotiations in the history of modern warfare. More in 1 month. He has resolved the most difficult issue out there, NATO. So what the hell are people talking about here? Where's the panic? Where's the uncertainty? Where's the betrayal? Where's this? Calm down, everybody. Donald Trump said he wants peace, and he's going to get peace, and it's going to be a real peace, not a fake peace, not a peace that's cobbled together rapidly to appease all the panickers on X, but a peace that lasts forever. In order to do that, you need things like security guarantees, not the kind that Starmer and Macron are talking about, but the innovative kind that Donald Trump's talking about. Economic-based security guarantees that ties the United States to Ukraine and to Russia simultaneously in a way that's economically beneficial for all parties involved. That's how you stop a war, not by putting European peacekeepers on the ground. So I think Donald Trump is just moving forward brilliantly on a pace that's realistic, on a very aggressive pace, and one that's going to see a lasting peace brought out. And there's no evidence out there that suggests that I'm wrong in my analysis. Everything actually supports what I'm saying.
You mentioned this idea of history, seeing the United States be engaged in long peace talks. And when you mentioned the example of Vietnam, there wasn't very much peace during that process. Here's what he had to say about arming Ukraine.
They have rare earth, and they have oil and gas, and they have a lot of other things. And we're asking for security in our money. Ukraine has agreed to it.
You are not sending any more aid to Ukraine.
No, we are, but we want it secured, and the money is going to be secured. Because if we didn't do that, then Putin would say he won. We're the thing that's holding it back, and frankly, we'll go as long as we have to go.
What do you have to say to those who are questioning why the arms and the aid to Ukraine continues even to this point where it seems like Trump has said that he wants peace, and one of the quickest ways to peace is to stop the flow of the weapons?
You know, first of all, we have to, I think, can we reach an agreement that Donald Trump is oftentimes inarticulate?
Sure.
And that when he speaks, sometimes his words become sort of a mumbo jumbo of ideas and concepts. So let's throw that there. So what I'm asking you to do right now, working with me, is throw away that entire statement for a second. And let's just talk reality. There's a budget right now that the House of Representatives, because last time I checked, the way the system works, I think the House has to pass a budget authorizing money to be expended to buy weapons. You know how much money is in that budget for Ukrainian weapons?
How much?
Zero. So you know how many weapons Ukrainians are going to get in the next 6 months from the United States? Zero, nothing. There's nothing in the pipelines. They're squeezing out what was already authorized. Much of that has had a hold put on it. What Donald Trump is saying in his word salad is that we've got $350 billion. You know, I don't know the economics of the rare earth minerals, but that's a number he likes to throw out there. Some people dispute that number, but he says that's our security. And the other thing he's saying is that money, that 350, can open the door for Ukraine to buy weapons. They're going to pay for the weapons. Again, let's just go back to basics here. What's Donald Trump's fundamental thing here? We're done paying for the security of Ukraine. Are we in agreement on that? Are we? I mean, I think you should agree with me because that's where he's at. We, the United States of America, are done paying for Ukraine's weapons. We're finished. It's done. It's over. If Ukraine wants our weapons, and we have beautiful weapons, we have the best weapons in the world, and we can offer those weapons to them so that you have to pay for it. And the way you pay for it is through this deal. That's what he's talking about. He's talking about long-term security agreements. He's not talking about continuing to fund the Ukrainian army so they can continue to resist Russia, because we're not funding the Ukrainian army. We're done with funding. We dropped out of Ramstein. I just want to remind people of that. The primary vehicle for providing weapon support to Ukraine was the Ramstein contact group that we used to lead. Pete Hegseth went over there and turned it over to the British, and he said, "You're in charge. Europe is in charge. We're done. We're finished. We're not going to be arming Ukraine again." That's the reality. That's the facts on the ground. So let's stop making stuff up. because you can take the word jumbo salad, but then you have to attach it to reality. There are no weapons going into Ukraine right now. There's no money for weapons. Congress hasn't allocated funding for weapons. So therefore, it's over. And that's, Trump is saying that, we're not going to leave Ukraine naked in any peace agreement. He's saying, and again, whatever Trump is saying today about the peace isn't going to happen. He has negotiators. The guy I trust more than anybody else is Steve Witkoff, because he's the guy that made this all happen. He's the guy that made it all about the economy. He's the guy in constant contact with Kirill Dmitriev, talking about the economic aspects of this. And he is positive. He is optimistic. He's the guy that I'm listening to when it comes to the details of this thing. There is no peace negotiation taking place right now. Everything Donald Trump is saying is just mumbo jumbo. There's no peace negotiation. The Russians have said the United States hasn't put anything on the table, and there have been no follow-on meetings. The meeting they had, I think today, in 6.5 hours in Istanbul, between the State Department and the Russian Foreign Ministry, was about the restoration of diplomatic relations, which is a prerequisite for any peace talks, because you have to have the connectivity between the Russians and Americans diplomatically before you can get into the complex business of having peace talks. So they're going to do this first. Meanwhile, today, the Russians slaughtered thousands of Ukrainians, captured more villages, dominant position, establishing fire control of the last main line of communication in the Kursk, and on and on and on and on and on. And the Ukrainians are in a panic. Zelensky, before he came over here, fired his, all of his generals, because they're not getting the job done. And I think people, here's where I think there's so many people out there that hate Donald Trump, despise Donald Trump, that they just want him to fail. And, I'm not going to use bad language on your show, Danny, because I respect you and I respect your audience, but you all can go to hell, to be honest. This isn't about loving Trump, but you're hypocrites in the extreme. You say you want peace. Oh, we believe in peace. We want peace. We want the war to end. There's one guy that's making that happen right now. His name's Donald Trump, but you hate him so much that you're desperately trying to pull things out of thin air to make it look as though he's a failure, that he's a liar, that he's a hypocrite, that he's doing the exact opposite. The facts just don't align up for the people that are, voting against Trump. The man is on a singular path towards peace. Let me give it again. I just want to get the basics here, because people, you have to stop making stuff up. Donald Trump has instructed Pete Hegseth, that's the Secretary of Defense, in case you all didn't know, to immediately begin reducing the size of the Defense Department budget by 8% for the next 5 years. That's a 40% reduction when this is all said and done. That's the strategic direction that this warmongering hypocrite that you all are talking about is taking us. And part of the instructions that are being given to the Pentagon on where to reduce the funding is to reduce European Command. That's the U.S. Military Combatant Command that supports NATO. Now, if Donald Trump was secret, because I've read this too, he's secretly trying to come in and build up NATO and betray Russia and stab Russia in the back, and their hands are moving imaginary arrows on the map. None of that's happening. He's talking about withdrawing the United States. Oh, what was the other thing that happened? That's right. We defunded NATO. Whoa, what about that, guys? All the secret war plans that's pretty damn clever of Donald Trump. A secret war plan against Russia based upon lies and hypocrisy, but he's defunding NATO as we speak. And, is he helping the European Union? Nope, he's going to put tariffs on them as well. Guys, get on board. Stop hating Donald Trump and start supporting peace, because that's the direction he's taking us, the direction you all claim you want to be going on. This is a man who is talking about, preventing World War III. I remember, Danny, when we were talking in September, October, November, how worried we were about nuclear war and how worried your audience was about nuclear war. Oh my God, nuclear war. It has to be stopped. Joe Biden's a threat. Well, the man that stopped it, his name is Donald Trump. He stopped it. We're not at that same level right now. He is saying, I don't want a nuclear war. And he is talking about nuclear disarmament. How can you have nuclear disarmament talks with Russia? The kind that he's talking about, sweeping when you're seeking to betray them with imaginary arrows and maps and designs and all this stuff. Stop it. There's diplomacy taking place right now. With the French, guys, Macron flew in, had an imaginary meeting with Donald Trump, and flew home with nothing. Nothing. Starmer flew in, had an imaginary meeting with Donald Trump, and flew home with nothing. Zelensky's here. He's going to have an imaginary meeting with Donald Trump and then go home with nothing. That's the genius of Donald Trump. He just took the three biggest diplomatic problems we have when it comes to resolving this. There was a fourth one. That was the foreign minister of the European Union who came in to meet with Marco Rubio. Rubio said, no, we ain't meeting. I'm sorry, I don't have time for you. Whoa, what does that mean? That means Trump is playing, the politics of diplomacy right now. Receiving people, holding their hands, laughing, making them feel good, sending them home with nothing. Absolutely nothing.
A lot of those defense budgets that are going to be raised are going to be spending money, I believe, on U.S. weapons. What's your response to those who may feel like this may be the United States stepping back in terms of its leadership role, but still fueling the kind of militarization in Europe that brought us to this point in the first place?
How's the United States? I'm confused. So you're telling me that the United States is going to cut ties with NATO, defund NATO, and then turn around and tell NATO that you have to increase your spending, and that means you have to buy weapons from the United States? What weapons are they going to buy from the United States? Not a single nation will buy a weapon from the United States going forward under those conditions. In fact, every NATO member so far is talking about, if this happens, that NATO needs to build up its own defense industries to limit the reliance upon the United States for weapons. So we'll go in the exact opposite direction. That's the reality. Listen, don't make things up. I understand there's a lot of smart people out there who, think on issues and all that stuff, and then they sort of start speculating. Read the minutes of the meetings that are taking place inside Germany, France, and elsewhere. It's not about turning to America to become the arsenal of democracy. That only works if America is leading the arsenal of democracy, in which case we impose our will on them and force them to buy American, as we have done for many decades now. But now, if they're going to become a European security alliance, they need European defense industry, and that's what every single European nation is talking about right now. The need to build up their own indigenous military industrial capacity so that they're not beholden to the United States. That's the direction, and that's the genius of Donald Trump. I know the comments. Scott Ritter sold out to Donald Trump. Again, screw you guys. You don't know anything about me, and you don't know anything about my position with Donald Trump. Because if you did, you wouldn't say that. If you've read what I've written about this guy, you'll know that I have huge problems with Donald Trump. But on the issue of peace and preventing and stopping this war, you show me where I'm wrong. Stop saying I'm in love with Trump and show me where I'm factually wrong. And you can't, because I've done my homework. This is everything that's happening here is what has to happen. It's the only way it could happen. And what Trump has done is put Europe in a position where, see, again, I just ask people to reflect. How do you have peace? Genuine peace, lasting peace. Do you have it by putting a bandage over the wound and pretending that the wound is healed, knowing full well that down the road they're going to take the bandage off, pick off the scab, and the wound's going to be festering there and just come right back at you? Or do you have to heal the wound? So if you want to have true peace in Europe, you can't. It's about solving the Ukrainian problem so it doesn't manifest itself again, and ending the cycle of animosity and adversarial relationship between Europe and Russia. Ending it. Donald Trump is not going to make good with the Russians and enter in trillion-dollar business deals about rare earth, mineral exploitation, while at the same time foisting a remilitarized Europe on Russia and getting those guys to fight each other. Do you understand how utterly ridiculous that sounds? But Donald Trump can't come in and dictate to Europe. Europe has to make that decision itself. And what's the best way to get somebody to realize something? Stop underwriting them and make them responsible. How do you get kids to balance their checkbook? Stop putting money in their account. You know? And so at the end of the month, if they go, oh, mommy, daddy, I'm $200 shy. You go, oh, God, here's $200. Oh, wow, look, I balanced my bank account. No, you didn't. What you do is you say, I don't have any money for you. You got to learn to save. Well, where do we? I don't know. That's an adult decision. So Europe has to become adult. And they're going to have to realize that, you know, when Trump was saying you need to come up with 2%, that's because the U.S. was continuing to fund NATO fully, but we wanted you to come up. Now, if we're going to withdraw some of that, you got to take it up to 5%. But if we withdraw totally, you got to take it up to 10, 15%, and none of them can do that. And so now Europe is going to have to look in the mirror and say, we can't afford to have an adversarial relationship with Russia. We can't afford it. And so maybe then they start imagining the world differently, a world where maybe they have peaceful coexistence with Russia. And they de-emphasize the military. They get into economic engagement. They solve their economic problems at home. And now Trump has created the potential for long-term peace and stability. And that's the strategic direction that we're heading. I keep trying to tell people we are in the midst of a revolution. The other thing that people keep coming up is, well, the deep state. The deep state is dead. Have you not been reading what's going on? It's dead. It's dying. It's been hunted down as we speak. 1 month in. 1 month in, guys. And look at what's happened. So, the deep state isn't, sitting there trying to pull the strings. The deep state's running right now. They're being arrested. They're shredding documents. They're panicking. They're resigning. They're unemployed. So this isn't some, fancy game being played by people. This is just a revolution in affairs. Trump is actually doing what he said he was going to do. He was going to break free of the paradigm of post-war American hegemony, which Trump said in the campaign, the greatest enemy to the United States of America is the United States of America. That the rules-based international order has to go. So, my God, he said it, and now he's in doing it, and people doubt him. He's doing what he said he was going to do. It's revolutionary, but nobody seems to be willing to accept this because, my God, if you did that, you might have to say Donald Trump's doing something good. And there's too many people programmed to be unable to even have that thought in their head.